But I was young and I was newly married and I had a couple of kids and I was stupid. I mean, come on, let's get real. Your freedom is gone. And I'm not going to lie, figure out a plan. And I would wind up begging my parents for help. It'll take you about an hour. Figure it out. That's what I would tell my 20-something self. If I could go back in time and teach my 20-something self one very valuable lesson that could have transformed the last 4 decades of my life, it would be this one simple thing: live below your means. Now, I know that sounds really simple and contrite and whatever, and financial gurus tell us to do this all the time, and certainly my parents lived this way. They modeled this for me throughout my life. But I was young and I was newly married and I had a couple of kids and I was stupid, and we lived way beyond our means for the longest time. When I think about what it cost me, not money's never been important, very important. But when I think about the heartbreak and the stress and the anxiety and the lost opportunities and the dreams that never happened because I had strapped us to a debt wheel so massive, there were times we couldn't breathe. Living below your means applies to anyone, whether you are making $30,000 a year or you're making $300,000 a year. We all need to live within our means. I was making really good money when I was in my 20s. For the time, I was making a really good living. I always wanted the next thing. And I don't really know why. I don't know. I think there were times when I was trying to create some kind of happiness in the home that maybe wasn't there, or maybe I was trying to impress people that I graduated high school with because I didn't think I was very well liked when I was in high school. I don't know the reasons. Most of my money, big money, went to cars. At one time, we had 3 cars and a bass boat. There were only 2 of us that could drive. One of those cars was sort of an old beat-up Jeep, and we'd paid most of it. We had a little bit of money still owed on it. But then the other 2 cars were what we drove to work every day, and we were paying payments on those cars. They weren't paid for. The payments, the insurance, the gas, and then I would trade cars. We would get tired of that one and buy another one. And sometimes I would trade the car in like 8 months, lose a lot of money on the trade-in. But I felt good because I had another new car. We went out to eat all the time. And it wasn't just my wife and I going out for dinner, maybe trying to have some time alone away from the kids. It wasn't just that. It was the family of 4. We ate out all the time. I would buy my wife new clothes, maybe something new every week, just trying to look as if we had it all together. And I'm not going to lie, that there were times when the power got shut off. There were times when the phone got shut off because we didn't have enough money to pay the bill. It was embarrassing. It was horrific. And I would wind up begging my parents for help. There have been more than a handful of times that my mom has bailed us out of my stupidity. Now, it's easy to understand in today's age why enough never really feels like it's enough. Social media impacts us. It's never been easier to get credit, or at least it wasn't. Maybe it's harder now, but you could go take out a loan for almost anything. And then there is this whole thing about lifestyle creep. You get a little raise, and instead of socking that money away, you start to buy another dinner out, or you take a better vacation, and all of these things just continue to add and add and add. And it was probably the single most detrimental decision of my life to live beyond my means. I think I lived with this lie that I was just one purchase away from happiness. It's like the gambling addict. He's just one throw of the dice away from hitting it big. You're just one gadget, one car, one suit, one new picture in the living room away from finally feeling peace. And that peace never, ever, ever comes. It brings with it this huge weight that strips away so much potential in life. Your freedom is gone. Your freedom to leave a job and take a month off before you find another job, not going to happen, because you've already spent that money on something else last week that you needed to put aside for this week, and now you're worried about stealing from next week to cover this week, and the battle just rages on and on and on. So if I were to tell my 20-something-year-old self about living beneath your means, it would entail these kinds of things to help me understand. And one is, get a budget. I mean, come on, let's get real. How hard is it to write down what you got going out the door and what you got coming in the door every month? I do that now. I know exactly where I'm at every day of the week. Why I couldn't do that in my 20s or my 30s or my 40s and on into my 50s, I have no idea. And then this year, figure out a plan to get past the hump of spending more than you make, and figure out a plan to get to a place where you are making more than you spend, and get your savings in order, get your debt under control, figure out the difference between what you want and what you need. Here are my challenges to you, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or just turned 67 like I did. Today, if you don't have a budget, get one. Stop what you're doing. Sit down, figure it out. It'll take you about an hour. Now, you may have to come back to it a time or two as you realize there are things you left off. How many of us thinking about the dry cleaning bill? Or, how many of us think about this subscription we bought to something that we forgot until it gets charged to our charge card again? Still happens to me sometimes. But get the bulk of the budget down today. And this month, pay down a debt. Do everything in your power this month to put aside all of the excess stuff that you thought you wanted and pay down one debt. That's what I would tell my 20-something self.